And we're live.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Community Engineering live stream. This time we are talking all about docs, and I am very lucky to have the part of the amazing DevDocs team with us, who are going to show us everything there is to know about DevDocs and I believe a little bit about the up-and-coming merchant docs, hopefully. With regards to open source and contributing of those. So if I don't want to take up any more of the time, I'm going to pass it over. And yeah, hope you enjoy it. And remember, you can ask questions in the live chat at any point, and we will get those either at the end, we'll do a Q&A session, or we'll get those in process during the live stream. But thank you for joining, and over to you guys.
Thanks so much. So quite a few of you already may know my face. I'm Lori. I'm from the community engineering team, writing for them. And we have a fantastic group here of tech writers. If you guys want to introduce yourselves real quick, that'd be cool.
Donald Booth is here.
I am Sheree Spangler. Hi, I'm Leslie Tilling.
And then off camera, we have Jeff Matthews, who's also one of our managers here. And Leslie is also manager and leads up the merchant docs, which we're going to have some awesome news about. So let's jump right in. And like David mentioned, ask your questions. We're happy to answer them as we go. We have a PowerPoint and some demos to provide, but we're willing to go off script if someone's got something juicy they want to know about documentation. All right. So let's do this thing. Okay, so of course you're talking to the documentation team. This is an entire group that covers DevDocs as well as merchant docs. What's merchant docs? That's all our user guides. So here's our quick agenda. We're going to give you a tour, talk about contribution, a little bit on our processes. We have new wikis posted that kind of go over all this. Going to go over the new merchant experience for content, which some of you have noted on Twitter. Thank you very much. We're also going to talk about some special achievements. Yes, we have them. How to set up your IDE, because some of you at Imagine mentioned, hey, how do we preview this stuff? We got the master here, and a bit more on resources and such. So we're going to go ahead and get this going. Take it away. We're going to Shree.
All right. So I want to give you a quick tour of DevDocs. Our site has a lot of features. Some of them are probably invisible to you. Sometimes it's hard to navigate to certain areas. So I'm just going to do a quick run through to kind of educate you on some of those features. So first and foremost, we have our version switcher. It's super easy to switch between versions here. Click it and go. You can tell which version you are on as soon as you click it. It has it up there at the top. 2.3 is our default version. It's our most recent version. Search. You can do search in 2 different places on our site. Right here at the very middle of the home page is her search. You can also search up here at the top. And it gives you a pre-populated list of topics you may want to see. Super easy. Up top, we have our main menu navigation. Everything cloud is in one place, including release notes, which I think is important to mention. We've got our setup, mostly the installation guides, config guides, development, everything from backend, front end, API, testing, all you want to know about MFTF. Functional areas is an important area. It's where you kind of navigate to other doc sets, like order management, like page builder. Sometimes it may be a little bit difficult to find these areas. First, just go to your functional areas. You'll see them all in one list. Super easy to navigate. Scrolling down, we obviously have our focus areas here, everything you need for setup, which is also kind of mimicked in the top navigation. Important to note, I think, are some of these developer guides, especially Page Builder, which is a new doc set. Super helpful. We've been working really hard on the page builder docs. You can get to the release notes right here from page builder docs as well. I don't know why that's zoomed in. Funny. Sorry, 1 second.
Because it's a Friday.
Yeah, it's Friday. Can y'all see that well on your end? What's going on with it? 1 second. All right, there we go. Okay, back in action. So another important thing everyone needs to be able to look at quickly, easily, are release notes and what's new. We have them in our release information section here. Release notes is a really richly populated area. You can get to commerce and open source really easily from the left nav, or also right here on the page. We also have a link to inventory management, GraphQL, and page builder release notes. So we try to make these easily accessible from multiple areas in our documentation. What's new just gives you kind of an overview of the changes that we've made on our site regarding documentation. We leave out things like punctuation, grammar, spelling fixes, but we give you all the important information here. Just click through, you can see the date that it was added, what kind of update it was, and we even have an RSS feed. So you don't even have to navigate to this page to see what's going on. Super easy. Contributor guide. Now, we know everyone loves to contribute. We love your contributions, but there are some guidelines, some things to follow, some things to know. Our contributor guide, contribution guide page has both information for code contributions. And if you click DevDocs, it'll take you right into GitHub to view all of the information for documentation contribution. Super helpful, super easy, links to everything you need to know. So if you've been contributing to code or docs, you may want to see your face here. You can easily sort the contributions. At the top, we have regular contributors, solution partners, maintainers. You can sort by month, by quarter, by year. Here's your drop down here. Click into anybody's GitHub profile that's listed. And my favorite feature of our DevDocs site is our feedback mechanism. Anytime you're on a page in DevDocs, anywhere, this little happy face down here will show up. Simply click it. Tell us that you love us. Send your message. You can add an email. We suggest you add an email. So if you have issues with our documentation or questions, we can respond to you. We can get in touch with you and get more information or help you troubleshoot what you're doing. Thanks for sending your feedback. So we monitor all of the feedback that comes in. We try to take action on things that we can change quickly. We create backlog issues for things that we want to track. We try to stay on top of it. If you have feedback, we welcome it, we want it, we need it. So please, when you're on these pages, click that smiley face, give us your feedback. It's really imperative for us as we continue to improve DevDocs. All right, so I'm going to hand it back over.
For sure. All right. Okay, so really quick, oops, for some reason it started way at the beginning. Back to where we were. So Shri gave us a great kind of insight to how to look at the documentation, how to see what's been contributed, and then, where to go. But a lot of questions come up at contribution days, sometimes through Slack, like, what is doc contribution? Now, for merchants and some partners and product folks, that's easy. It's, what the heck is this? If I Google it, can I find something that tells me what it does? But for developers, we wanted to give some insights on when you might need a doc contribution. Maybe it's, you already found something in the docs as you were working on your certification test for Magento, or when you're teaching some groups, in your organization, or customizing some work as a partner for a merchant, and you find things that aren't quite right. So you may enter an issue, you may use the feedback mechanisms and click the little happy frowny face at the bottom and provide here's a link to the page, and this is just wrong. Some of you are even better and say, this code snippet's odd. Here's a way of maybe fixing it, or we could use more info on this item. So we're going a step further and starting to really help everyone who does code contributions understand, when you contribute code, are you actually hitting the doc? For example, some of you that are working in Magento Core, providing updates to Magento 2 code base, you may add or modify a field. You may add or modify an option to a field. For example, we recently added Elasticsearch support, and then we changed some of the options listed to show that. Well, we got to update the docs for that. That's real important. Maybe you added a CLI, a command line item, or added or changed some of the functionality for some of those. A good example is MSI, now known as Magento Inventory, added a whole bunch, a slew of reservation CLIs for 232, and that required documentation, so they knew, added a ticket, and we got that documented. Anything that deals with APIs, GraphQL, please, that's a doc. Let us know. We have an incredible group working with Kevin Harper on that, as well as Eric Marr was helping. So thank you very much for those contributions. You find a bug, you've worked on it, and maybe you might want to update the doc because you changed a method or you added a module for it. Let us know. Or code samples. We always welcome those. And of course, module readmes. Psst, there's not many, so we could really use those. But how do you contribute? Well, a lot of folks have had some fear of contribution, and it's a lot easier than you think. You could contribute using the tried and true developer method of using Git. We have tons of information walking through this. We'll show you some of those guides. You basically just want to fork the DevDocs repo or the new to come merch repo coming soon. You want to create a branch. You want to work on it, typically on your local. We're going to walk through, Don's going to give you an incredible overview of how to set up your IDE and text editors for this. Once you edit the content, it's actually just normal, plain English with a little bit of tiny formatting. It's not even as taxing as, say, HTML. It's like writing a GIST. If you've written a GIST or a README, you're good to go with working in our DevDocs. You just then push your branch, fill out the PR content. We please ask you to do that. And then we review it. With our side, the only tests we're running right now are on links. We're going to expand on that. And then literally within a week, you may see your stuff live. That's faster than everyone else, right? If you are not a fan of Git, maybe you're new to it, or you just want to edit one tiny file, you can also do your contributions straight through GitHub. Very simple to write your content, edit the files, you save them to a new branch on the fork, and then you either continue adding to that branch or just immediately submit the PR and move to the next. Super easy, super simple. We also have wikis that go over all this, and I'll show you those in a second. But say you're like, nah, I don't want to contribute. I'm a little scared. Or maybe you want to be really awesome and get like double awesome points in our book. And you want to create an issue to match with your PR, which would be fantastic. If you've been watching changes going on in community engineering, we've added a streamlined issue backlog project in all of our special projects. There's also a backlog for community engineering, the Magento 2 core. DevDocs has one. They work all the same across all the projects. And we even created a really snazzy, easy to use guide. This will allow, if you can see this image below, for ready for grooming.
Your
Yeah.
sharing's not actually working at the moment.
We are seeing you, not your slide.
You're not seeing my slides.
No, we're just seeing you. I didn't realize you had the slides. Otherwise, I would have said.
Oh my goodness
There it
gracious.
is.
I shared, but it didn't share. I'm so sorry, folks. Okay, is it sharing now?
Yeah.
Okay, you see my slides?
Yep.
Okay, well, my apologies. Let me go back here so you see the slide. It's an awesome slide. And when you should write content, I talked about that a moment ago. I'm really sorry. And how to contribute. Look, it's real simple with these cool little diagrams. It's awesome. There's wiki guides for this, so I'll show them in a moment. So here we are, the backlog. Okay, so the ready for grooming, that's where the doc team is going to look at each of these. Maintainers can also provide feedback and research and information. Once we feel there's enough information in the ticket, it'll move to ready for development. If it has a good first issue tag, it automatically goes there. If you're a contributor, you just come here, grab directly from ready for development or good first issue. The moment you claim it, it goes into dev in progress. And as you put in PRs, bam, in there. And then we have a really nice process for handling your PRs. All of that's available on our wiki. I don't want to take up all our time though and head over to our next wonderful person, which is going to be bloop, myself again. Okay.
Welcome, Lori.
It's Friday, folks. If you're watching this recording, it's a Friday. Pardon me. Okay, so we have a ton of doc projects available for you to take part in. The developer docs, which Sri did an incredible overview with, we're always looking for content there. We have a DevDocs repo that provides all the issues like I showed. We've got that backlog. You can pull all the content and issues from there or add to it. We also have PWA Studio, GraphQL, Magento Inventory. All of those also track documentation tickets in those repos. We may start being able to have all of them in one place soon. We also are going to have additional projects coming up. I know there's some Adobe integrations that may also welcome documentation contributions. We look for tutorials, code examples, general overviews, anything you feel like you have the knowledge and you want to help us impart it to the world, please join in. And then for merchant content, that is our user guide. We're about to have this fantastic overview on this. This content is anything and everything that a merchant needs to know, from setting up a store, the options for configurations, how to use these features, and onward. So we will get a deeper dive into that content next. Well, in a moment, because we're going back to Shri. Take it.
Taken. We have created a new label in our DevDocs repo called Special Achievement. So Special Achievement is for those issues that require maybe a little bit extra work. They tend to be a little bit bigger than your normal issue. And they may be issues that we need assistance on. These are a high priority for us. We've also given you a generous amount of points for working on one of these issues, 20 points, which is pretty stellar. And that's on top of if you've done a major update or an editorial change or whatever, that's on top of those points. So you get a plus 20 points on top of whatever you would normally get. I want to show you, we just created a most wanted project that allows you to easily just pick and choose right from the project. You don't have to look for the label. You don't have to search for anything. Simply go to GitHub, click the Projects tab. We have a most wanted project pre-populated, currently with 7 to-do items. Simply just pick one, check it out, nab it as your own, start working. So we have some ideas to help motivate you besides the points. If you do a special achievement every month for a whole quarter, we're going to send you some swag. I can't tell you what that is yet. It's a surprise, but you're going to be happy. We also call you out on Twitter. We know that you like to beat your own chest, tell everyone about all the great work you've done. We want to recognize that. We want you to feel like that your work is warranted and needed, and it is, and we love it. That's why we created this project. That's why we created the special achievement label. Essentially, we need your help. We want your help, and we want to make it easy for you to nab those issues. You can also easily go to the Issues tab, click the Labels drop down, search for the label, select it, and they also just appear in a list. If you have any questions about the special achievement label, hit us up on Twitter at Magento DevDocs. We're going to be promoting it a little bit more in the coming weeks. So you'll likely see specific issues highlighted, specific call outs for help. If you see something that's up your alley, don't be afraid to nab it or just tweet back at us. I manage that Twitter account. I'm on this side of things. So if you want to talk about any of it, just hit us up. That's our special achievement.
Awesome. All right. And now what you've all been waiting for.
I don't know if I would.
You can. All right. You everybody see my slide? It's coming up. And now we have Leslie.
All right.
Lay it on
Hello. This is my first community live stream, so I'm excited to be here. My name is Leslie Tilling. I am one of the doc managers here at Magento, and my specific focus has been on the merchant documentation to bring it up in step with our DevDocs. You all have been enjoying really good DevDocs experience in the past, and we want to make that happen for you for the merchant docs as well. So this is a very long-term project. Our primary project objectives have been to improve the overall merchant doc experience, enable community contributions, yay, and provide for publishing scalability for ourselves and to be able to get those contributions in and be able to publish them quickly. And also, in the course of all that, getting higher quality merchant documentation. So we've hit our biggest and first major milestone, and that is we did launch our Markdown Jekyll docs for the 2.3 user guides. This was deployed for the 2.3.2 GA release on Tuesday. Very excited about that. In case you haven't noticed, you can go check it out. It's all generated out of Markdown source files. It's currently in a private Git repository managed by the Adobe infrastructure. That is so that we can spend a little time working out the workflows, making sure everything works just as exactly as we want it to. And it also, we built in support for all the CI/CD publishing and everything that DevDocs uses. And the feedback with the smiley face, which was Shree's favorite feature, we have been able to implement that as well right out of the gate. So we're excited about all of those things. When you first go to it, you are going to kind of notice some differences in the look and feel. We've really tried to implement most of the best things about the DevDocs site, right, as much as we could right out of the gate. You're going to notice a kind of just a better overall, cleaner user experience, overall better navigation, all the side navigation and expanders. We do also have our own little selector, but instead of a version selector, we have an edition selector. So if you want to go between the open source guide, the commerce guide, or the B2B guide, you can do that right here. Are you seeing this? Okay, good. And then we've got a lot of the same navigational features. We'll be expanding this as we go in and we kind of address our information architecture going forward. And a lot of this is going to kind of grow and change according to customer feedback. But in the meantime, we just are really excited that we can provide just an overall better look and feel for everybody going forward. And so what's next? We are in the process of, while we've still got it in our private repository, of creating Git issues and a backlog of items for people to work on both internally and from our community. We're going to be testing all of those workflows. We want to support contributions not only from our great dev community, because we know they also have great merchant doc contributions to make. We also want to encourage non-developers to be able to contribute to this documentation. So we're going to test some workflows and try to enable people to feel comfortable even just editing directly in GitHub, like Lori was mentioning. That's a really easy bar to cross to be able. We'll have that same link that will take people right directly to the repository page where that source file lives, where they could actually just add things to the topic as it exists really easily and submit those as really quick and easy PRs, just to kind of help us make our topics better. We're going to provide a more merchant-focused contributor guide and a wiki. We're going to, community outreach to all of you, try to kind of drum up as many contributions from as many areas as we can. And of course, we'll have those same great GitHub templates for issue and PR submission, all that great labeling, some of the things that Sheree and Lori were just highlighting about, all the backlog and projects that people will have available for them to work on. We're going to institute all of those best practices here as well. So we are planning to launch this into a public repository in September. Yay, very exciting. The end of just what you want to do right as summer's coming to an end, right? And that is it. I hope that everybody's going to be pretty excited about that. We've already heard a lot of enthusiasm, so we're really looking forward to that.
Yeah. Imagine was raving over this,
Yes.
and we've seen quite a few folks on Twitter talking about how great it is. And also to really push this point, it will get the same point rewards as DevDocs for contribution. So if you've, I know a lot of partners and SIs write content for their merchants. Now's the time, people. Now's the time.
If you've got custom content that you had to create for your own customers or for your own users, you can turn that into great examples. People love examples. They learn best from examples. And that would be a great addition to our docs.
Awesome. All right. Well, now it's the next thing you've always wanted to know. The secrets. Okay, I'm going to end my share.
I will start mine.
I think it's ended.
All right, is that working?
You see David? Oh, there we do.
Good?
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, good.
Oh, no, right there.
So what we want to talk about here is doing actual editing to help improve the quality of submissions that are coming in, and also to kind of give you a little insight about how we work internally so that you can be more efficient in your workflow. So I want to show you some editors, extensions, and things that we use to in our daily workflows. So basically, we're editing text files, and any text editor will do, whether it's Notepad or text editor or whatever. It doesn't quite matter how you generate the text. But we use some common editors like Atom and Visual Studio Code. Because Magento is a PHP-based app, there's a lot of PHP Storm users. But like I said, it doesn't really matter what it is. But I'm going to show you a couple and show you how the editing workflow works through these editors like we do every day here. So the first one I'll show, one thing that a lot of editors don't know is that you can do a little markdown work within editors with the help of extensions and such. So the main thing that we work in is Visual Studio Code. And this is a free open source editor from Microsoft. with a big ecosystem with extensions and things. And this is kind of what many of us use every day in our DevDocs editor. And my general day kind of looks like this in Markdown or in Visual Studio Code with the DevDocs repo open. But I also wanted to talk about, before we get started with that, is the extensions that we use that really make big differences in our days. That's the little square icon here, and you can see the extensions that I have in my editor, but there's a few major ones that we use. That would be the Markdown linter is the big one we want to talk about, making sure that your Markdown that gets submitted is of high quality and following all the rules that we have here for our repo. And then we have some GitHub pull requests and Git lens. These are all kind of Git helpers that give us insight into our PRs and such. And you can see those here where I can see all the PRs that are assigned to me. And I can pull those PRs in directly. Or if they're assigned to me on GitHub, they'll show up in this list. And so it's a quick way to get to files that are kind of in your wheelhouse, whether they're waiting for your review, assigned to me, created by me. It's very helpful. And this Git lens shows you kind of where you are in the repos. Because this is a little more complex than most because of the way we set our multi-repo setup here, we pull in a lot of repos to build DevDocs, and you can kind of see the state we're in to kind of give you a sense of where you are in the repo. This other Git one here, the source control for Git, this is very helpful because when you make edits, say on this file, any kind of, you save a file, it'll show up in a changed file. And then from there, you can stage it. You can make your commit messages here and then push it to the server. So I spend a lot of my time all day here pushing and pulling and syncing from here. You can stash within this, do commits, undo commits. So it's a very helpful window that we're in all day. We'll be talking about that again shortly. Notice how I just reverted the changes I made, and it realized that there's no diff in the file, and so it got rid of the change. So that's very helpful. The main one we've talked about, because we spend all day working in Markdown, is the Markdown linter. And what that does is it's a set of rules that are kind of in the Markdown world that we use to check syntax for linting. So in the conversion process, when we run it through our build process, we convert Markdown to HTML, and we need to make sure everything's kind of lined up, kind of literally in the right way, so that conversion process happens smoothly.
It's checking against the rules that we need.
Right,
to
checks
be
against the
followed,
rules. So I want to show you kind of a few files of what that looks like in the different stages. So if we look at, in the install guide, this options pages, this is kind of what we see in HTML. What we see in Git, if we're in the editing view, kind of looks like this. So here's the raw Markdown. And a lot of you edit, I think, directly in this. So we're going to talk about this more later. So this is kind of what we see here. And it all looks well and good, but if you spend some time with the Markdown linter, you'll see the errors that are inherent here in this file. So if we look at the same file with our Markdown linter extension enabled, this is the same file here. And now we can see all these little green highlights. Those are all Markdown errors or spelling errors. It could be both. We have a few linters in here, spell check and Markdown. And when we see green underlines, those are errors. And if we hover over them, we'll get a little pop-up and it'll tell you what the error is. So this was blank lines or around headings. Generally, the idea when you're doing editing in Markdown, there's spaces between everything. So we can look at this and go, there should be a space between all headers, and that green, that will go away. We'll also see in the Problems tab, if you open your command panel down here, here's also a list of the errors. These are Markdowns, and these are spell check words, errors. You can see here there's a lot of hard tabs. If you see hard tabs in here, that's legacy code. So this is coming over from earlier conversion projects and legacy code. But tabs are generally not wanted in Markdown. It'll work, but we try to get rid of them. So we can see here we have quite a few hard tabs in here. And in Visual Studio Code, they show up. You can't really see them here, but they're little arrows to show it's not a tab as opposed to spaces. So we need spaces instead of tabs. So I spend a lot of time editing PRs and in DevDocs getting rid of those. And you replace it with 2 spaces. And it should go away. But there's other errors, such as ordered lists like this. They should all be 1s. And then the conversion process takes care of the numbering automatically. So I spend a lot of time kind of doing this. And now that green arrow has gone away because both errors are gone from that line. So that one line had 2 errors. And so this is very helpful. I'm doing this all day. Is checking these Markdown linting and getting rid of these little lines. And then in a perfect file, this problem should be down to 0. Now, there are some times where you can't get to 0 because they're just coding things that have to happen. But generally, you want this list to get down to 0. And if I spent a lot of time getting rid of the tabs, we could do that here.
Is it fair to say that you live in Visual Studio Code?
It's fair to say I live in Visual Studio Code. So the Markdown linter is an extension. It's free. Anyone can install it and get it and use this. And this will generally raise the quality of submissions before they get to us, which is kind of what we're trying to do, is ensure that the PRs are of high quality when they get to us. And that saves us time and back and forth. And so we can get things merged quicker. So we do have some exceptions and things that we can, and we publish these. We'll have these in contribution guides so you can kind of follow along. But there are things like first heading should be a top-level heading. That's one rule that we don't really use, or we have an exception for, and that's talking about these headers here. The title, the H1 tag, we get from the title tag up here at the top, so we don't have to have that. So if we were checking against it, it would show up as an error, but so now we can exclude those kind of rules. And we'll publish the exclusions that we use, so we're all kind of on the. So when we get good at Markdown and we see, or we can visualize the errors that are showing up here, it makes it a lot easier to edit it. And that means when you come back here, and in kind of the normal workflow of if you're just making one-off edits within GitHub, now you can see that how the errors kind of pop up. And you can see these big spaces, but we're going to talk about this more in a little bit. But you can see how now if you have a sense of what the Markdown errors are, you can look at this and go, oh, those errors. Oh, and we can fix those up. But we're going to talk about that more in a little bit. This is just a sample of kind of the, if you go into Visual Studio Code and the config, here's where you can set the customization in your rules. And this is just an example of what mine looked like. So part of the reason I'm telling you this is because we have steps in the pipeline that will do this checking in our testing environment. So these checks are going to happen in our build process anyway, and they will start breaking builds, or we will have to go back and fix these errors to kind of all the tests and get the green check and be able to merge. So in the future, all yours will run through these linting gauntlets. And so the sooner you start kind of knowing the rules and knowing how to get rid of all the errors, that will smooth the process coming up. So there'll be linting is in the pipeline, spell checking is in the pipeline, and the last one that we're going to do is image optimization, which we'll talk about a little bit. We're trying to come up with a way to have images optimized before they get into the GitHub kind of ecosystem, you say, before they're into a PR, into a commit. And that has to do with file size and repo size. Binary files like that take up a lot of space in the GitHub repo. And if they start smaller, the whole repo stays smaller. That checking will come in the coming months, I think. And so we're going to publish ways where we can get images optimized before online optimizers and other ways of optimizing, so we keep the code base manageable. And that's a link to this file that I've been showing you in the different views. So as we talked about, I surmise that a lot of you spend a lot of time editing the one-offs directly in GitHub through the GitHub UI. And I have some examples of kind of how to look at this bare code and kind of see through the code and see the errors. And so I have some examples here of pages from the repo where this is what you'll see when you open up the editor mode. And this is also kind of how you get here is through those links up at the top right corner will get you into the repo up to the right page. You can edit directly in there. So when I open this, this is kind of what I see. And part of the maybe the game we can play with this slide is find the errors. You know, what do you see is needs fixing here? We take a few minutes to look at it. Not a few minutes. This is what shows up, and this is what I see when I open the page. So as I showed you in Visual Studio, we like to have spaces between all headers and the next content. So that's one error there. Here's the tabs that show up as big gaps between either the number for the ordered list or the dash or star for the unordered list. I showed you an example how in ordered list, it should be all ones, and then we, on the backside, handle the automatic number generation, so you don't have to keep editing those. So now we can see we already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 should be ones. So there's another error. This code block, generally the basic rule is you need a space between each type of content. So there needs to be a space between code blocks here and the code around it. So there needs to be a blank line here. I see that if you're in a code block right here, in a bash code block, this doesn't need to be indented that far over. So this can come way back in. And we'll talk, maybe I can show you in Markdown preview how we have tools that help you know when you've indented correctly. So you can make sure that these are going to show correctly in the end result. So here's another one where you need a space between the code block and the number. So why I'm showing you this is because a lot of times you're going to want to make a change to some code. Maybe, let's say this bin Magento command has a typo in it, and you got to fix it. So you make that change and submit it. So it's kind of a one-line change. But at the same time, all these other errors are still coming through. And what I'm hoping is that if you can look at this pages that you submit holistically, fix up all these little lines, because when I come in and want to approve and merge your one-line PR, I'm not going to let all these little errors be able to slide through. So I'm going to have to fix them anyway. So this is part of getting higher quality submissions in as early as possible. Find these, recognize the errors, and fix them as early in the pipeline as possible. Saves work for everybody. So here's another example. If you look at this, you can already see the ones that we did last time. There's the ordered list that have the numbers. It should all be 1. Single space after lists, spacing around code blocks. If you're in a code block, this indentation comes way in. Here's where a missing code block where we have 3 ticks, but no type of code block. And what these do is tell us what kind, how to color code what's within the blocks. For instance, if it's a bash type like this, that adds the $sign at the start of the line, but it won't copy it when you select the line. And then you would use terminal for output, where you don't want that little $sign. So these are very specific for code coloring and readability. So we can see that there's a missing code block there. If you're in a code block, this spacing can come in because this just pushes out the width of the page unnecessarily. It's just extra white space. It's not needed. Here's another space around code blocks. Now you can see here on these code blocks down below, this MySQL user one, it doesn't have a code block, but it's kind of double indented. And when you indent this kind of code enough, it will turn into a kind of a generic code block. And I'll show you how you can preview that in the editors. And then one more. Give you a chance to look for some errors. Again, for changing content type, generally you want a space in there. A lot of white space here in a code block, pull that in. Here's some more tabs, or maybe they're just 2 spaces, but these should be one or 2 spaces between the bullet type and the content. So, and again, you didn't make these errors, but they exist already in the code. And like I said, the fewer errors that show up, the better. I'm just talking about that indentation bit here. Most editors have a markdown preview that lets you see what it can do style-wise. It doesn't get everything, but it's helpful for, and this I hit the, in Visual Studio Code, there's this preview button. And there, you can see it will convert the headers for you, and you can ensure that those are right. It'll do the bullets properly. Here's an example of the indentation, where if the indentation is correct, you'll get the code block around it. But if it's off by 1, it won't do it. So this is very helpful for keep adding spaces, and then eventually you'll know when you're at the right place. And again, if it's, especially if you're trying to do a code block within lists, you have to go even further. So here I have to get rid of the 2 tabs. And then I keep coming in, I think it's 6. And then you know when it switches, now your formatting is correct. So these previews are very helpful for kind of visualizing your markdown. Again, it doesn't do a lot of the ending styles. It just does pure kind of markdown formatting. But it's a helpful way to have it. In Atom, we also have it as well. Packages, markdown preview, toggle preview. And you can see, making sure you're right. This was a little interesting page because you can see there's some things that happen that are interesting. Notice in line 2 here, this CD, and then to kind of a generic web server. But on the preview, it doesn't show up. And that's because it thinks this is a tag, and it's not handling it correctly. But if we space it in enough, and that converts to a code block, then we'll be able to see the whole line. What's funny, the same file in Visual Studio Code handles it correctly. So we can see here it's doing it. So it's just an interesting little difference between editors. But these previews, I'm in these previews a lot too, just to make sure that because Markdown is so formatting specific, this is a very helpful feature that we've been surprised to how many people didn't know it was there. So free feature for you. And that, I think, is all I have for today.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Don.
Sure.
And I know that was a lot of info quickly, so when you watch this, you might want to pause here and there. But towards this end, what we wanted to wrap up with is some resources and then, check in on some questions that may be coming in. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. me again, folks. So to help out, we have added a new wiki area to the DevDocs. Also, when the merchant content repo goes live, it's also going to have its own wiki. And this is to help out with all these kind of questions and thoughts. For example, all of that incredibly interesting information about how to format your Markdown. We do have templates and content available in the DevDocs in the contribution guide that Shri had pointed out. But we also now have some of just the high level, what you need to know to just get started, documented in here. Really quick, fast, easy information. Some of it in a code format. That way you can just literally see what it should look like when you type. Also with some of these IDEs, if you use something like Atom or Visual Studio Code, there are tricks and settings you can enter just for Markdown in specific Markdown extensions that'll do all of this for you. And that way the linter doesn't go crazy on you and you feel awesome and you get more gold stars from us. Yay. We also included some really quick info on like, how the heck do you put an image in here? We're cool with images, maybe not all of the images, but tried to give some insights on how those go in, what they look like. Also notes. This one's always a biggie. People wondering, how do you put a note? You might see very different examples of code around it. It's because some notes get really huge and some are small. This is the easy, quick, throw it in and type. Whatever's right immediately after this info, and you can change info to tip or warning, you're good to go. And then links to all the extended descriptions. Also in the wiki, we have our pull request process that I had hinted at earlier. This gives you the very clear walkthrough for maintainers, contributors, the team itself, on how to submit your PR, but goes in a little deeper into additional pieces, like what's new. You may have been like, what the heck, why do you guys add that at the end when the PR is going through? Well, it automatically adds that to our what's new page of changes. It's sort of like a walking change log on a weekly basis. So we've provided some info in there, as well as how we are reviewing these PRs. What happens in this black box? We actually use a project, and we're going to start adding some automation behind it. But for right now, it's a little manual. And we work with maintainers, and you'll be able to go to this project. It's not hidden. It's not a big secret. We add your PRs here to this backlog. We pull them. We start to review them. Maintainers provide their insights. Writers also provide some reviews. That goes into this needs writer approval. If we are all a good sign off, it's ready to go, we put it into Jenkins testing. Right now, we're only testing links. This is something we do on our side. And then once it passes, we merge it, it's done. And automation will automatically run the publication process and update DevDocs within, like, I think it's every hour it's running. So it's a very fast turnaround. And the moment you're merged, you get points added to yourself as well as your partner. And you'll notice some of these partners, it works just like engcom, is automated behind the scenes. So it takes all the questions out of it. We also included tips for making incredible PRs and, what really helps us and how to get in contact with us. And also Don, who was just giving us this great information on IDEs and such. He manages the small changes. We all help and support him, but he really is the mastermind behind this. We provided a little bit of info here, and we'll be expanding on that, I'm sure, over time. For the backlog, you noticed that new piece, that new project. I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like, large and in charge. And again, works just like all the others. And if you go here to the menu, there's a guide, or you can just, click over here boop, in the wiki. We walk through what's going on. This info is great for our maintainers and our contributors, as well as each other, as we start working in this awesome new piece. Let's see, what other great things are there? There's, of course, the contributing information and everything Shree has already pointed out. I'm not going to beat that horse there. You've seen it. You know it's there. We try to also work with all of the architects to ensure that those contribution guidelines are updated based on code, what you need. So, send contributions. You can help out with that as well. There's a community group that's working on coding standards and architecture. We work with them on their PRs to also update all the documentation. So I think that's a crazy amount of awesome information. Let me go back here. And of course, all of that information is in this slide deck. We will be posting this slide deck and a link to the recording in the DevDocs Community Engineering DevDocs channel. There's everyone's welcome to join that channel. We also have a merch docs channel. So you're going to see a lot of traction and movement in that as we get closer to going live. So you don't have to memorize these links. You don't have to pause the video. Just go look at the slide deck. And it'll have also all of those incredible links and info that Don was providing, the previews that we had on the new merch content. And of course, you can always find us on Twitter and in the DevDocs channel. I'll also add the merch docs on there too. So I think this is a good point to see if there's any questions that came through.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for sharing. It's really really cool. I like how I love how Merchant Docs is being open sourced. That was the only question, was can we contribute to Merchant Docs? I'm like, yes you can. Jeff has answered that pretty well. Looking like in September there will be open source for Merchant Docs, so you can contribute back to those. I'm super looking forward to that. The amount of people that have asked when they saw how well DevDocs was working was like, can we do this for Merchant Docs? I'm like, I will do my best, and it's so good to see that coming out. So that's amazing. So thank you so much for joining us and demoing. So we have some time for questions. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the live chat, and I will get those across. But I actually wanted to raise a question. So we mentioned it a few times, or it was mentioned a few times, that we have some maintainers involved in the projects or in the document side of stuff. So I just wanted to ask if, firstly, if someone was interested in becoming a maintainer, is there a process behind this, or is it more like you'll be reached out to from the DevDocs team? And also, is there a place where you can see DevDocs maintainers and stuff like that?
Yeah, hey, this is Jeff Matthews, manager for DevDocs. I can take that question. So yeah, we certainly encourage people to contact us directly if they're interested in becoming maintainers. Likewise, we may reach out to community members and ask them to be maintainers. So I guess the short answer to your question is yes to both. There is a bit of a process that we do have documented on the website. You can, if you want to reach out to us directly, you can either do so on our DevDocs Slack channel in the Community Engineering Slack workspace, or you can reach us at our magento-docs@adobe.com email address.
Or on Twitter.
Or on Twitter. And but we do partner closely with community engineering to sort of go through a light vetting process. So it's not instantaneous, and we do sort of look through your contribution history and partner with community engineering on getting that vetting process taken care of.
And we do have some information on that in the contributor guide, which I'm showing right now. So I'll ask the next question on that, because we started to talk about that in the team this morning, is merchant doc contributor maintainers?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had reached out to David a little earlier, incidentally, and just to get some conversation started, get some ideas. And I think that, you know, we certainly have been making strides to simplify the process for community so that contributing to DevDocs feels very much like contributing to other Magento open source projects. And so, sort of in keeping with that theme, I think we should explore expanding the existing DevDocs maintainers team and maybe make it a little bit more generic, like just docs maintainers. But of course, you know, I'd like to have a conversation, or we should have a conversation with the existing DevDocs maintainers team and engage interest there. And then, of course, as we get closer to September, when we open source the merchant documentation, I think that there will be ample opportunity to possibly recruit more maintainers just for merchant documentation. So there may require updates to our guidelines for maintainers and setting expectations, especially if some maintainers only want to focus on merchant documentation and vice versa for DevDocs documentation. So it's really good that you bring it up, and I think that, yeah, now's the time to start having those conversations while we prepare to open source merchant documentation. Awesome. So it's on the to-do list.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. And then, okay, there's still no questions in the live chat, so I will leave this as my last question. So I wrote some notes as I was doing it. So unless you have any questions that come in the next few moments, this will be, I guess, the last one. And it was, if you are doing code contribution and you think, this needs docs as well, but I'm not comfortable with it myself, is there a flag or some place we can go to say, I have this PR, how do I get help with the docs at that point? What would you say is the best process?
Sure. So I'll show you right now. If you can see my screen, should be sharing.
Yep.
So we're in DevDocs, we're in the repo, and you hit new issue. We have an option for community engineering issue. So what this specific ticket is for is if you are entering a code PR to say Magento 2 or some other repo, you can go in here, start filling this in, put your link to your PR, the link to the code, issue. You can change this from Magento 2 to say PWA. I'm sure they have their own process, but just, we can always move tickets around. Fill it all in. Maybe we even have options here like, did you affect, not did you touch the core? I mean, did you touch the admin interface? Did you add a CLI command? Did you maybe add or change an endpoint? You can put all the extra info here. And then if you don't have the option, it's okay. We can always come and add it. But we have a label for community. And this community is going to tell us this is an issue. It came in. It has a code PR. And we do have a couple issues like this when you come over here. I believe there was one for admin access. This one, I just was reached out to by one of the awesome developers. And he let us know he's got a PR that's in progress. So we filled out this issue with him. He even provided screenshots, which is like really awesome. That he wants help with not only documentation, but how to move this content from the UI into the docs, and then getting help with maybe some UI content. So here's a good example of one of those kind of tickets that come through.
Awesome. Amazing. Yeah, that's cool. That's good to see that there's a process.
No problem. And then before we end today, I know this isn't going to make sense a year from now in this recording. However, for right now, we did make an announcement in Slack. We're making the announcement here. At the end of June, the 2.1 release line will no longer be supported. It's hitting its end of life. So documentation team is also going to be reacting. We've provided all this info. It's in Slack. It's in the wiki's first homepage when you hit wiki. Provides all the information you need to know. And we will be, also on break for next week. So just read through this, look through this information. Maintainers are also aware. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us in Slack. Links are all available on this page.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, awesome. Well, it looks like there are nothing's coming from the questions, but so then just want to say thank you so much for sharing this information with the community. It is going to be great. I'm very much looking forward to see how the docs progress and the merchant docs kick off with contribution as well. So it is great to have this opportunity to hear from you all. And yeah, thank you for watching as well, either watching live or watching back. And yeah, feel free to reach out to anyone that you've seen. There's the DevDocs, Magento DevDocs Twitter or in the Slack, and they'll be able to help you out wherever possible. I hope this has got you excited for documentation contribution. And I look forward to seeing how much great stuff comes in after this. Yeah. So thank you once again, everyone, for sharing today. And thank you for watching. And yeah, see you next time. Bye.
Thanks. It's been awesome. Thank you so much.